Hey YouTube, the new Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list just came out for July 2016, and we don't know when there was going to be a new ban list apparently, or so the rumors go. But I'm not really a regular player anymore, but nonetheless, I still do play the game, here and there, both online and at local card shops. And if you know me, then you know my favorite deck ever is Mermails. And lo and behold, I was inspired to play even more now because we got a card back for Mermail Atlantean, or popularly known back in the day as Merlantian. Because the deck had definitely been slowing down compared to other decks because just all the new support for everything else and the new floodgates and just the diminishing support for this archetype, or archetypes I should say, water in general, or at least old school water as opposed to Necros. But yeah, we got Atlantean Dragoons back to 2, which is it may seem really small getting that one card back after losing 2 divas and completely losing title altogether. However, getting just 1 Dragoons back is enough to make quite a difference, which I've already noticed in the deck through my play testing. And I think the deck with the proper player and the proper build, because the deck definitely is one that takes a lot of thought. It's not just your spam. It's not just your I forget what's the phrase they use, but one of those decks that it just plays itself basically. Just same old freaking play every single turn, which what to me what a lot of the meta has turned into. But that's just my personal opinion as a grumpy old guy. But yeah, this deck takes a lot of thought, but I think with a lot of practice with it and the right build, I think it'd do pretty good this format, honestly. Especially with the way certain things like the Ijin lock got hit, very devastating, and one of the oldest tricks in the book that was just so goddamn annoying. But yeah, let me get into my build before this goes on any longer than it needs to. So I'm running standard 40 card, no over 40 because it needs to be fast. To give a quick summary of my main deck, it's basically meant to be aggro as hell. Because I noticed with the meta, you try to outlast them and the game doesn't really work because most decks can rebuild resources so easily. I mean, Necros, as they clear the field, they can just banish spells to add more spells than the heck out of the deck. Shadows can re-add their own spell cards because if the fusion monster gets destroyed or just basically gets removed from the field, as long as not banished. And Satel Knight's just endless Call the Haunteds, endless spam, and then so on and so forth. So to me, the point of this deck is to hit them hard, really fast, hopefully OTK or come close to it, and then try and finish them off in the following 2 to 3 turns after that. And so far it's been working pretty well. I usually play on Dev Pro to avoid the bullshit of Dueling Network, but for the sake of this video, I had to use Dueling Network just to take a quick picture of the deck. So here we go. Just one controller. I'll get to reasons behind that. The new development, 2 freaking Dragoons. So amazing. One of the best cards in the deck, and it basically makes all your OTKs and plays live as hell. Don't be stupid. Play 2, obviously. Moving on, 2 Infantry. Really good card, considered playing 3, but I will not be playing 3 until Nepta Abyss comes out, because it's going to be really freaking good for decimating fields. 2 Marksmen, because back row, I fucking hate you. And occasionally set monsters, although that's usually not a good idea these days. Only 2 Undyne. The original plan for me was to do 3 Undyne, 2 Controller, but the problem was I just kept drawing Controller, so even if I set one Undyne off, the problem is if I draw a second Controller, just 2 dead Undynes in my deck, and I have 2 freaking Controllers stuck in my hand. And the common thing people say is, oh, we'll just use it to Synchro, to Ixie. Yeah, but that's slow. That requires normal summoning the Controller, and hopefully have an already established field to Synchro with it. Which, under normal circumstances, is fine, but the format is so fast that it's not just wise to do that to me. Especially since every time I try to make a synchro play these days, it's bound to get bottomless or lose a turn. All those horrible floodgates that I just freaking hate. So yeah, the point of just get 2 Undyne now, the risk factor drawing controller is pretty freaking low. You know, just 1 card out of the 40, and you know, setting up just 1 Undyne puts you so far ahead in the game because instantly 3 cards you get out of your deck. You know, you get rid of the Undyne, you get rid of the controller, you dump a monster who usually gets an effect off, usually an Atlantean, and you know, hopefully it's Dragoons. If it's Dragoons, you get to search 3 cards. It's such a plus, such a freaking plus. Onto the Mermails. 3 Gundy because Gundy fuels OTKs, fuels Ixie plays, helps you rebuild a destroyed field. Too good of a card not to be running at 3. 1 Lead because he's a beater, and being a beater in OTK type deck is really good. 3 Lind because it's one of the main key players of the deck. People criticize it for being slow, but honestly, floaters are still very good. As you know, there's a lot of floating decks right now in the meta. And Lind is freaking good. 1500 is kind of small, but still, it can crash with decent monsters and then do damage from there by bringing out Lead, or by comboing, by bringing out Pike or Turge, and then from there Pike or Turge discards Gundy, Marksman, Infantry, Dragoons, and then from there you go off. And I love that because during damage step, nothing can really be chained unless it's a counter trap, so your plays are pretty safe right then. I love the damage step with Lind. 3 Megalo because 2 Dragoons, and it's basically almost always live now. And even when Dragoons is at 1, I love playing 3 Megalo because it's like the heart of the deck, or just OTK, so why not run the card that helps you OTK because it double attacks and surges your spear, which is very important. But now with 2 Dragoons, it's just why the hell not run 3 Megalo. It's one of my favorite cards. 3 Pike, one of the most important searchers in the game. You pair Pike with a Dragoons, freaking awesome. Not to mention Pike gets you freaking Gundy, gets you Marksman, and gets you Undyne. Some of the most important cards in your deck. So yeah, 3 Teus. Once again, one of the best searchers in the freaking game, and definitely in this deck. Gets you Pike, which gets you everything else. So yeah, 3 Teus is just mandatory. Plus has the most minimal cost of all the big Mermails. And 1 Turge because Turge is freaking good. He really is. Once again, during damage step, it can be really good, and also the whole end phase. You know, Pike, Gundy, get Turge back, add. That whole loop is pretty awesome. Now to spell, as you can see, the thing I noticed with this deck is there's not a lot of fields it can't get over, other than, you know, Dark Law or, you know, Killer, or something like maybe Wind Up, but even then that could be easy killed with a Lind into Megalo or Lead. But back row is a problem for this deck, especially certain floodgates like Soul Drain, Macro, D-Fissure, lose a turn especially, slow this deck down, or outright stop it altogether. So my main thing is just I hate back row. And since we didn't get a heavy back, unfortunately, I'm hoping to get it back soon. My simple solution was fuck back row. Besides, there's 2 Marksmen, which are pretty good for that. 1 MST, 3 Night Beam. But I've been playing around with this. You could do all kinds of variations. If you want to do the classic 3 MST, and that's it, that's fine. But I like Night Beam because, you know, you can't chain. And most people do not normally start off their turn by just activating a floodgate just because. Usually you want to chain to something you're doing. It's a classic thing to do. So Night Beam is awesome for that. Not to mention Night Beam allows your opponent, they can't like chain bullshit like, you know, mass change, or like I said, Vanity, lose a turn, skill drain, shit like that. You will definitely see in so many decks. I know Night Beam isn't chainable, which is a problem when things are already face up. So in the future, I probably will just go 2 MST, 2 Night Beam, but I definitely do want 4 in there because back row, like I said, is the main problem for this deck. But once back row's out of the way with, the game just breezes by so easily. 1 Regeki for clearing fields. This is good for clearing big ass fields like Cool Force will set up, or clearing out Dark Law, Ophion, bullcrap like that. OTK. Soul Charge because getting back a bunch of big monsters to make really big, messed up feel like Gaios Engineer is pretty cool. Not to mention, it allows you to recycle your Dragoons, since once again we don't have Net to Abyss, so this is a good way to recycle Dragoons that are already in the grave. You soul charge them back, then you make Dweller or Bahamut, boom, search. Or 101, search. Boom, it's awesome. 3 Upstart because this deck doesn't have a, even though Dragoons are super easy to set off, the problem is if you can't discard because of some kind of bullshit floodgate or maybe Dark Law or something like that, Upstart can become our Rhoda, our Summer's Art. We can thin our deck. And the good thing is when you try to do an OTK is you combine Upstart with the power of Dragoons and Undyne and Teus, and you could thin your deck incredibly well in just one good turn and even get to your MSTs or anything that you might need to go for the big push. So it's pretty important to me to have 3 Upstarts. 3 Spear, I don't think I even need to explain Spear. It's just a multi-talented card, very versatile, awesome. And traps, I decided to go minimal because, like I said, the goal is to end the game as soon as possible. So 1 breakthrough, 1 solemn. Breakthrough, just hit that random monster effect that might try and get in the way, like Dark Law, fuck him. Breakthrough, kaboom, or breakthrough a Trish, which is also now back at 1, along with Necros Trish. Those are asshole cards. And then solemn, which sometimes can make conflict with soul charge just because of life point cost, but if you play smart, it won't matter. And that's all there is to the main deck. Now, a very important aspect of this game is the side deck. I mean, I hate when people do deck profiles and don't include side deck because side decks are very essential to this type of game. It really is. If you can win game 1, it is almost meaningless if you cannot win game 2 because of when they side against you and you fail to prepare for those sides. You can get crushed pretty easily. So this side deck is made specifically to stop the main threats I see to this type of deck, which are pretty evident. 2 Valor because sometimes effects just need to be stopped. Hitting a key monster like Deneb or Trish at the proper time can save your life and slow down your opponent, which gives you a chance to do your thing. Do I like Valor that much? Not too much, because it's kind of a -1 in some senses to me, especially because it doesn't really flow with my deck at all. But like I said, it serves a purpose, so I run it. And not to mention, you can't MST Valor, unlike Breakthrough Skill or Fiendish Chain. 2 Flying Sea because some Ixie monsters are just a pain in the ass to deal with, like Dante. God, I hate that card. But Flying Sea puts a dent in any Ixie focused decks like Satella Knights, Burning Abyss especially, and other rank 4 variants. So Flying Sea does a lot of damage, and then you do your thing. Dark Hole because you need to clear field to do OTKs, and certain monsters like Dark Claw, like I said before, get in the way. 2 Galaxy Cyclones. This card is freaking amazing for dealing with back row, especially in the Quillfort matchup. You pop a set card, and whether they chain it or not, you basically force them to activate it, so you know what you're dealing with. And then next turn, like a Breakthrough Skill, you get double the usage, you banish it, and you pop a face-up card, like Scout, like freaking Skill Drain, like Lose a Turn, which I said slows this whole deck down because it negates your effects and puts you in defense mode. And or like Soul Drain, which also just wreaks hell on your deck. So yeah, I think Galaxy Cyclone's a really good side. I might start siding 3 for all I care. And also, like I said, interchangeable, depends on how you want to run your deck. I side 2 MST just in case things need to be more chainable. But like I said, just depending how you want to run your deck, that could be Twister, Trap Stun, doesn't really matter. Just points I want at least 4 more outs for Spell and Trap Destruction in my deck. Moving on, I side 2 more Breakthrough. Breakthrough to me is way better than Valor. The only thing I hate about Breakthrough is when they open up MST like crazy and just wreck you. So, but Breakthroughs to me is better than Valor because you get double usage out of it, and it's really good against Dark Law because you stop when it comes out initially, and then on your turn you could deal with it any way you want. Usually by infantry, pop his ass. And the last 4 are counter traps. I think are really good for this format. 2 cast trap hole because it wrecks the Tail Knights, which are a big problem for this deck. It can hurt several other decks like Burning Abyss. It destroys certain Ixie monsters. It's not good against heroes per se, but overall the card is really good against a number of problem light and dark decks that I just hate. And lastly, 2 debunk. I really want to make room for 3, which I may cut a Valor or a Flying Sea, because debunk is really good against Burning Abyss. It's really good against Shadows, and it is also really good against Necros. Debunk is super freaking good. This is my side deck. It's my preference. You can do as you wish. You know, run Malcat or whatever, Trap Stun, but this is how I like it. And the last section, which has changed probably the least since this new format announcement, but to me is also just a tad important different in some aspects, is the extra deck. And I guess the main and most obvious thing is now I'm now running Trishula, which is now legal at 1. Now people say it's going to go the way of Gaio Guardian and eventually become irrelevant. And to a certain degree I see that, but also I'm really more opposed to that because Gaio Guardian is a battle-based effect, and really battle-based effects are kind of lame nowadays. I mean, things like Drek Waiba died off for a reason. So much crap can happen to a monster once it hits the field, let alone it surviving to the battle phase, actually doing any real harm. That battle phase effects are kind of just crappy. Unless you're a floater, then you're in the game, but battle triggered effects are not that great these days. However, Trishula is a hard hitter. It doesn't just, all it needs to do is get summoned. It doesn't even need to really, activate in the sense that, you have to announce it. As soon as it hits the field, it goes off. So your opponent has to immediately react with something like Solemn or Breakthrough. And then, if they stop Trishula, well, then you can go ahead and go off from there. Or, it doesn't really matter, you still have a really big beater. Now, of course, the only ways I can really make this monster are with 3 level 3s, controller, and then with Undyne or Gundy or Lind. Or I could do, if I side, I could do Pike, Dragoons, Teus, any 2 level 4s with a Valor. And because I run Soul Charge, it's not really that hard to make the synchro. It's just a matter of when I choose to do so and what's the risk factor. If there's a lot of back row, I usually prefer not to, because if waste 3 monsters on a synchro summon can be really wasteful. I prefer to do it when they have no back row, maybe 1 or 2 monsters on the field, and playing a Store of Course in the grave in hand, and then boom, setting up Trish can be devastating. Even if I sacrifice my battle phase with a Soul Charge to bring Trish out and it goes off, I'm in a way better position since I've just took away 3 of their cards, which are usually very important. Just be sure, use it on the right deck. Don't use it on something like, Ritual Beast, which will just wreck you if you banter stuff. And even against Necros, it's kind of okay, because if you clear their field and you can't kill them that turn, then like I said, next turn they just start banishing their spells, then they rebuild their hand, and you can get wrecked. But it's good against things like Satel Knights, where you can banish the Nebs from graves, making Call the Hunted dead, and so on and so forth. Trish to me is good. You may have noticed I'm not playing Leo, which to me is a sin, most definitely. Sorry about that, battery's getting low. I wrap this video up. But yeah, Leo was definitely a main component of this deck before, and I'm definitely looking for a way to get it back in my extra deck. I just need to find which Ixie to cut. But to me, Leo's pretty powerful still. It can be dealt with kind of easily if it just sits there for a while, because Regeki and Dark Hole running around, but it's still a really good card. Gungnir, I know there's some other really good level 7 singles right now, like Moonlight, Rose Dragon, and the other new Worm Synchro, which stops level 5 or higher effects, and so on and so forth. But to me, Gungnir's still the best one for me because it activates my water effects. So if I discard Gundy or any Atlantean, the effects go off. And if I use Gungnir to destroy your set Mirror Force and I discard Gundy and I get back a Megalo, that could be game ending. Or I could just make it rank 7 Nixie, which is still very powerful. So that was just a go-to choice for me, obviously. Queller is obvious. Bahamut should be really obvious. Castell. Exciton might be the one to come out for Leo, because I honestly never go into Exciton. Cowboy. Try and end games. Once again, something I don't really go into too often, but when I do, I'm glad I have it. Drake Sack is obvious. Engineer. Soul Charge. Drake Sack, Engineer. Big Eye Engineer. Good play. Gaios, staple for Mermail, really good. 2 Trites because if I have to grind out the game, this is a good way to do it. Big booty defense, and when it finally does get killed, I can bring back Pike, Megalo, Lead, and use their effects, so really good. Better than Squall. 101, obvious. Big Eye, obvious, and Nightmare Shark. When you think I can't kill you, I want to poke you for game. And of course the classic Megalo with Nightmare Shark, tribute Nightmare Shark to attack direct for 48. Pretty sneaky way to win the game, but very effective. So that is my Mermail July 2016 deck profile. I hope to see a lot more Mermail players this format because I really dislike most of the meta, honestly. I hate to sound like a critic or whatever, but I still like this game a lot, and I just want to see more Mermail players this format, both online and at my locals. So here's to hoping. Have fun, everybody.